Kalen Deboer steps in as the new head coach for Alabama, and with a new head honcho comes a lot of changes, and it's a clean slate at Alabama. It's going to be all new folks. You said Saban's still going to be hanging around. He's going to be in the building, and I think that that's a big deal because I think that he definitely has an impression on the team. But at the same time, it seems like Kalen DeBoer is pretty headstrong and pretty happy to do things his way. What do you think is the trajectory for this team as of right now? And like, what is the new Alabama going to look like in 2024? It's too early to tell. We have not seen spring camp. We hadn't seen fall camp, but just kind of projecting what we're seeing right now, it's looking like it could be a tough year for Alabama.
It could be a really tough year. Look, I love Kalen DeBoer as a head coach. I really do. This really gives me Brian Harsin vibes at
Uh-oh.
Auburn. This is a guy who's coming in from outside the Southeast and is going to try to make it work at Alabama. I think that as an on-field coach, he's excellent, right? But when you put him into an environment like Alabama in the Southeastern Conference, he's got to hold up in recruiting. And I just don't think that he's going to be able to do it. And I told you, before they made this hire, when we talked on Wednesday, we mentioned Kalen DeBoer is a prime candidate, right? And I, at the time, I had it listed as, hey, you go try to get Sark. If you can't get Sark, you go knock on Dan Lanning's door, try to get Lanning. If you can't get Lanning, go to Kalen DeBoer. I had him listed ahead of Mike Norvell at the time. In hindsight, Norvell would have been a better recruiter. He's already got the relationships with the guys. DeBoer's a better on-field coach, and I think that's pretty obvious, pretty clear to see. But at the end of the day, I don't feel like this was going to be a great move, a great decision for any coach, right? Because you're stepping into the shadows of Nick Saban. And I feel like this was going to be a 2 to 3 year stop for any head coach. I don't feel good about Kalen DeBoer in this situation, in this spot. I'm just going to kind of put that out there, put it on the record. He's got so much catching up to do in recruiting, and he's got to do it. You can't not recruit at Alabama. One thing that could really help him out is if Alabama changes their whole approach to NIL and they're able to rally the boosters, rally the collective, and start paying out. Start paying
Yeah,
money. Some of these guys who they don't have as strong of relationships with. There used to be a Saban discount. Georgia's getting it with Kirby Smart right now.
that's right.
With a Kirby Smart discount, right? You don't have to pay as much for players if you're going to go to be developed by one of the best in the game. You're going to
Yeah.
have to pay more now if you're Kalen DeBoer, unfortunately, until he can prove that he did it. And look, this is what it. Say what you will, right? This is what Saban did when he first got to Alabama. He paid players to get the best guys that he could on his roster and prove that he could coach them. And then, after a while, after you've got your guys and you're producing first round draft picks, you don't have to do that anymore. Well, Kirby Smart probably did the same thing at Georgia, right? So this is just kind of what you have to do. Now you can do it legally. Now you can do it, within regulations. But I'd like to see Alabama really pay up. It's time for that program to pay up, pay their players more. I think that they've got the fan base to do it, and if they do so, along with making the right defensive hire coaches or defensive coaching hires, I think that that's the recipe for success for Kalen DeBoer. But what
Well,
are your thoughts? You've been high on Kalen DeBoer since he started at Washington, pretty much. What are your thoughts on him in this new position?
well, I think that you're only as good as the coaches that surround you, and he's going to have to. I totally agree with you. He's going to have one hell of a supporting cast around him to be able to get this job done. So I guess that kind of leads us to our thoughts on Kane Womack, who's going to be defensive coordinator coming over from South Alabama. We're in a world where a guy can go from being a head coach back to being a defensive coordinator, and it's not considered a lateral move because of the obvious uh, large budget for coaching hires and things like that Alabama's got. So Kane Womack was a decent coach at South Alabama, but this is a big step up in competition, and this is going to be this is going to be a really tough defense to get to the level that Alabama fans are used to, I guess is what I'm trying to get to. I think everybody's got to just bring their expectations down a notch a little, because I mean, look at the talent that's leaving Alabama. And you're right, it's about the relationships, recruiting and talent acquisition and retention is about the relationships that you've built over time. And you're bringing a guy over here. I heard on the Cover Three podcast, and it was pretty funny, but it's like if Kalen Deboer walks through the Atlanta airport, nobody's even going to know who he is.
Right.
And he can be wearing his Washington hat and he can be wearing his Washington gear, and somebody would be like, "Oh wow, that's weird. You don't see a lot of Washington fans around here." I mean, that this guy is not from here, and I just thought that it was culturally kind of a weird fit there. But look, he's a great coach. I don't have any doubt that in a couple of years he's going to be able to figure things out. He's bringing a quarterback over in Austin Mack, I believe, and
Hmm.
that was the quarterback of the future for Washington. And if Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb like him, and he's the future of the program for Washington, then he's going to be the future of the program over in Alabama. One thing that I don't know that people are talking a ton about, and I don't have the answer for it. Maybe you do, Mason. But what's Julian saying thinking
Hmm.
about all this? The
What's he
quarterback.
saying?
I have no idea. What's he saying, man?
Yeah.
Uh, what what what? I mean, who's the quarterback of the future for Alabama? We don't really know. Ryan Grubb's coming to Alabama, right? Because I
Yeah.
feel like it's been like has that been officially
Yeah,
announced by
it
Alabama?
is. It is. It was weird. It was like not as big of a story as it should have been. Um,
Nobody's talking about it. You can't even find quotes and stuff
mhm.
about it. I
Yeah.
looked.
I
Um,
it's odd. They're bringing over him, their offensive line coach.
mhm.
I believe the receivers coach, if I'm not mistaken, but
Well, I
they're
know
keeping.
Alabama fans are like, please give us that center and I think
Yeah, I
that
know,
center
right?
is coming over from Washington.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
well, I was talking to my dad earlier. We had basketball practice and had to coach the boy. That's why I call him the boy. Um, I
The
had to coach
prodigal
him and his
son.
team, and Dad said that center is only 270 pounds, and I
Mm.
don't know if that's true, but you know, look, SEC fans, and then my dad's a perfect example of an SEC fan that's like, you ain't coming down here about to do nothing. Like,
He's only 270.
yeah,
You know.
that's how what talking goes on down here in the South. That boy is only 270. You
Yeah,
know, they're
yeah.
gonna blow him off the line. And look, Alabama fans, I joke around about center because everybody knows there was tons of snapping issues and things like that. So look, this is gonna be a completely revamped Bama team next year. We're gonna figure out who's staying and who's going. Julian Sayin is somebody that we need to keep our eye on and figure out. I don't know if he signed early. Did he signed early, right? For
Yeah, he did.
24
He's
class.
signed. He signed his LOI. Um,
So now Alabama and Washington are the only two teams, if I'm not mistaken, who still have a little bit of a window to
mhm.
transfer. So those two are not, and
Well,
we're going to
and
go through transfer
Arizona
portal.
technically
Okay, Arizona too, yeah, because
with
Jed
Jed
Fish left.
Fish. Mhm.
Um, old Jed, and we'll talk about Jed here in just a minute too, because that's something that's pretty interesting to me. But
Very
um,
noteworthy.
yeah. So with Ryan Grubb coming over, what do you think this offense is going to look like? I mean, I guess it's kind of hard to tell right now, right?
It is, but they're bringing kind of like Deion Sanders, and they're bringing their own luggage in a lot of ways, and they're going to try to get everybody that they can from Washington to come play with
We're going to
them.
get rid of all these awesome, not get rid of, that's the wrong terminology. We're going to let all this awesome talent go, and then we're going to bring in our non Louis luggage, right?
Well, you got to fill the holes somehow, right? So they've definitely got holes. If Alabama's got anything right now, it's holes in
Yeah.
their roster. 26
It's
holes.
and it's not Kalen DeBoer's fault. I
It's
mean,
not.
it's not his fault. I mean, sounds like we're dogging on Kalen DeBoer, dude. Like we like Kalen DeBoer,
We
okay?
do, yeah, absolutely,
We li-
absolutely.
we
I am fearful that this move is going to hurt him in the long run. I think that
yeah.
had he stayed at Washington, he probably would have been better off in the long run. but we'll see, right? If he wins at Alabama, hey, he's going to be one of the greatest coaches in college football,
No doubt.
I think that's just a tough job to fill. Alabama's a tough place to coach at.
Dan
But
Lanning was the only guy I think that could have just stepped in, and he
he
wouldn't have
knew
retained all talent,
he
but
would have
he
got a
would have
lot of them.
done. He would have got a lot of them, dude.
Yeah,
Um,
and
but
I think
I
he knew. I think he knew. He was like, man, I don't want Saban sitting upstairs breathing down my neck. Um,
he's got a
it,
good
it,
thing going out there in Oregon. So, um,
yeah, they got a better NIL package. And
big boy conference, $100 million a
but
year coming down the pipe.
oh yeah, oh yeah, and I agree though. I think that Lanning would have been the best fit for everything you want, right? A passionate coach, great recruiter, sustains relationships in the Southeast. Runs an Alabama type system. And is off technically that Saban tree. Um,
Hmm.
in an indirect sense, but ultimately, Kalen Deboer's going to be the guy. Again, I'm kind of fearful of what this looks like for him in the coming years. I think that this was a trap hire, and this could end up being a 2-year stop, a 3-year stop for Kalen DeBoer. Unfortunately, a coach that I really like.
Yeah. Yeah, well, he'll be financially set uh, for the rest of his life, so he
Yeah.
he ain't got to worry about that part anymore. Now he's just got to win some football games, and I think the goal for Alabama next year, and we're going to get into breaking down their schedules for next year later in the offseason here, as soon as some of this stuff calms down, maybe next week. But I think 9 wins, needs to be the goal next year, and I think that'd be pretty good. I think that'd be pretty impressive considering
Mhm.
the turnover that's gone on there. What 26 players are transferring out, so pretty tough odds and situation there.